not here. There we go. All right, so any opening questions? All right, well, let's take a look at we'll do the share screen. All right, can y'all see my desktop? Sort of.
Yes.
Starting up. Yeah, I can see it now.
All right, no, wrong class. 2. And we can blow that up. All right, so we're still a day behind, but we're shortly going to catch up. I think we may be able to catch up next period. We can go over the sample essay and the bibliography, and then we'll be caught up. Did I put up an opening on Moodle for you to upload your article review?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
There's no link though to attach our source.
No, what I want is just put the link in your paper with your bibliography, and then if I need to, I can click on it and go to, because that's just extra steps for you guys.
Okay.
It's all, especially if you're using the JSTOR. I've got access to that too. So if I want to look at it, I can do it that way. And to be frank, most of the papers that, most of the articles that you guys review, I've seen before because, there are certain, like everybody loves Cask of Amontillado, and everybody goes down to the first one that's, got 10 pages. So I've got that article in my brain already. So you don't need to upload it. Just upload your evaluation of it. Any more questions? All right, let's talk about Posson Jone. Did I have notes? How about that? Got notes. Do I have a map? I've got a map. All right, so Posson Jone is set about 1816, 1817. So now it's written later in the century. But Cable, if he had wanted to, would have been a pretty good historian. He knows a lot about Louisiana history, and there's this really complicated bunch of stuff going on. Even, we'd think of New Orleans as being French, but the Louisiana territory, the Louisiana colony, had a bunch of stuff happening to it. So during the French Indian War, France had lost Louisiana to Spain, but then part of Louisiana that went over to, went from Baton Rouge. Let's blow that map up. The part that went from Baton Rouge all the way over to Pensacola, the British managed to grab hold of that. And if you notice in a modern United States map, let's hope we've got the states. When you look at Louisiana and the panhandle of Florida, notice that they kind of form a line. So this was the area that the British were able to grab. And they called it West Florida. And while a lot of people who wanted to get away from the revolution went to Canada, they also, especially if they were living in the southern of the 13 colonies, would come to West Florida. And it's kind of a rambunctious, it's New Orleans is Catholic. It's largely Spanish and French, although a lot of other stuff there too, and of course African. West Florida, the folks coming in there are Anglo, they speak English, and they're Protestants. And so Posson Jone is from that area. Now, these days, we call our part of that area the Florida parishes. So St. Tammany, Tangipahoa, everything from Baton Rouge east is part of the Florida parishes. So against this backdrop, the story of and this is a obviously British map of West Florida because they kept wanting to push the boundary north. But it was finally settled, just the strip near the Gulf of Mexico. And when we got it, it was divided up between Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida. Everybody got a piece of West Florida that was in the area. So because, everybody wants to be able to get to the sea. But Louisiana wanted all of the Mississippi River that it could get, so we wound up with Baton Rouge. Okay, any questions about the background?
No.
Go ahead, Heinemann.
Oh, I was just saying, I didn't have a question.
Oh, okay. So the story takes place in New Orleans, but it's got this guy who's from the Piney Hills north of the city. Really, English speaking began on the North Shore, and North Shore of Pontchartrain moved up from there. So in the story, what is Jules's problem? He's got a problem at the beginning of the story.
He ran out of money.
No money. Now, he is part of the upper class, so he's technically rich, but who actually controls all the money? Think your own life. Who's in charge of the money for your family?
The government?
Oh, Dad, come on, you know that, right? Dad's got the money, and he's saying you're wasting your money. He says, no, I'm using it to gamble and to drink and to carouse. Well, whatever, so what's money for, right? He's a 18, 20-year-old, and he's loose on the town, and New Orleans has lots of ways to spend money, right? And so he's out there, and he runs out, and he's tapped out his dad. His aunt won't give him any more. He even owes Baptiste, his slave. Now, under Spanish law, now they've moved to American law technically, but under the Spanish law, slaves could own property. They could go and work for themselves, especially on Sunday, and the money that they made was theirs, not their master's. And so that the Spanish haven't been gone that long, and he's still doing things more the Creole way. Slavery is generally a much harder institution under the Anglos, as bad as it was under the Spanish and French. It got worse when the Americans got there, but he's not really an American in his heart. Now he's starting to learn a little English, but he can't speak it quite right. So instead of Parson Jones, he calls him Posson Jone. So Posson Jone, Posson Jimmy Jone. Now, where has Jimmy Jone been on business? Was it Mobile or Biloxi?
Mobile.
Okay. Yeah. So he's been to Mobile, and been doing business for the Bethsady Bethesda. I think that's it. Bethesda. And I like to think it was a Baptist church. Although there's no proof of that in the story, but there were lots of Baptists. It could have been, you know, Presbyterian, Episcopal, Methodist, and his attitudes towards the sinfulness of New Orleans would have been probably about the same. By way of background, Spain, when it owned the colony, was able to take West Florida from the British during the Revolutionary War under Governor Galvez. And then when the purchase went through, there was a dispute whether that was part of the Louisiana Purchase or not. And the Spanish said no. The Americans said yes. And Governor Claiborne went up there. Well, first of all, they had a group of, American sympathizers meet together and declare their independence. Whereupon Governor Claiborne, who was the first American governor, the only governor of the territory, and the first governor of the state. And he rode up there with the militia and claimed the territory for the United States. And that's when they did the dividing up. So it's a brand new part of Louisiana, and the folks in New Orleans still regard it a little suspiciously. For one thing, they speak English instead of French. And for another thing, they're schismatiques. And what is a schismatique?
Protestant?
Yes, because they schismed, they split from the Catholic Church. And we don't know exactly what kind of Protestant he is. I prefer to think of him as a Baptist, but, could have been any of the denominations that were popular at the time. And where he's going, I already told that he's going to West Florida, but that's not our Florida today. He's not going to Pensacola. He's going somewhere north of Lake Pontchartrain, because that's where we see him at the very end. He's taking off in a boat to cross Lake Pontchartrain. Okay, so what is homespun?
A piece of clothing?
Yes, it's a clothing, and we can see his clothes that he's wearing there, which look basically like anybody else's clothes, except they're not quite as fancy, because homespun means you made it at home using a
Spinning wheel?
Yeah. When I was a kid, my grandmother still had her old spinning wheel. It was broken and she couldn't use it. But we used to play like I was a pirate, steering my pirate ship with her wheel there. So back in the day, if you wanted a new shirt, what did you do? You planted cotton and you waited for the cotton to grow. And then you picked the cotton. And then you carded the cotton, and then you spun the, fluffy cotton into thread, and then you wove the thread, and then you took the thread and cut it and sewed it. So clothes were traditionally fantastically expensive, and people didn't own a lot of clothes. I wonder if there's...
Would you buy one for that much?
No, I couldn't afford it. Most people had one set of clothes, right? Maybe two. If you could afford it, you wore nice clothes on Sunday. Now, what kind of clothes would Jules and pretty much everybody else in town have? Or all the rich people? Where did they get their clothes? Did they spin it?
Imported from like overseas and stuff?
Yeah, and there's shops, and you go to the shop and there's a tailor, and the tailor makes you tailor-made clothes with nice cloth, not the stuff you can make at home. Are y'all old enough to remember Minnie Pearl? I've seen her on some old TV show. She was a comedian back in the, I guess, 50s, 60s, 70s. She would always come on and say, howdy. And she always had this hanging off her hat. And what is that?
Price tag?
Price tag. And I always thought it just meant to show how much she paid for the hat. But I also have come, since I read this, come to think that it also means she was able to buy a hat at a store. It's a store-bought hat. I had an older friend. We worked together at the Piggly Wiggly here in the meat market, and he was telling me that when he grew up, his mom would make them fresh biscuits in the morning. He would take them to school and eat them for lunch. And he was so very jealous of the kids from town who had sliced bread from the store. And if you've ever had a fresh biscuit versus a piece of sliced bread, the biscuit is so much better. But they had store-bought bread, right? Okay, so here comes this guy down the street, and he's on the lookout, right? When you get to New Orleans, there are helpful people there who are willing to work with you so to help you spend your money, right? And so he spots him, and especially when his hat blows off, he's got his $500 under his hat. Why is it under his hat? I mean, would you keep $500 under your hat?
Probably not.
Probably not. So why is he?
Did they
Which-
not have like wallets and stuff?
Well, the wallet would be somewhere lower on his body, and he's used to traveling through the countryside. And what happens when you're going through the countryside and you come to a stream?
You get robbed, maybe?
You get wet.
You have to cross the stream, and then the wallet could get wet in your pocket.
Right. That was back before we had a lot of socialism with our socialist bridges that we all hate so much. You know, but all my anti-socialist friends, they hardly ever ford any streams. Have you noticed that? Anyway, you forded. Maybe if it was big enough and had enough traffic, they would have a ferry, you know, and there would be a rope across the river, and the ferry person would pull the rope. And but a lot of these little creeks, you know, they don't have ferries at them. You just got to get across, and your money would get wet and soggy. And the driest place, and probably the safest place when you're out in the woods, is on your head, because it's the last place you're going to let get wet, and the first place you'll, you know, get back up out of the water. Still probably not the wisest place to put his money, right? And when Jules sees that big wad of walking around money, man, he falls in love, right? Okay, anybody find out what Place Congo was and is? So here it is today. They have paved it over. Where's the, God damn it. Sorry about that. Open image. There we go. It's also now called Louis Armstrong Park. But if you start at St. Louis Cathedral, go to the right of it and go straight back to the back side of the quarter, that's where Place Congo is.
Hey, just a quick side question. Is that like the museum, like right behind it?
I think that's a place where I think it's more like a theater. You know, like it's a civic center type thing. I'm not sure though. I've never been in the building.
I've just been to New Orleans like last year, so I was just
Cool.
curious because I think I walked around there, but it was filled with a bunch of homeless people, so I think I like avoided it. But
That's all of New Orleans. So yeah, you walk straight back. It's there. It was right outside the city originally. Rampart Street was so named because once upon a time there was a more or less imaginary wall there, the ramparts. Just the Vieux Carré, the French Quarter, was all there was of New Orleans. And so this was just outside of New Orleans. And the Spanish and French were much more lax about letting slaves and free people of color gather on Sunday than the Americans were. And so on Sundays, people would gather together at Congo Square, slaves, free people of color, but also white people. And it was a place you could, I want this. It was a place they could dance, they could play their music, they could practice their religion. You see in the background is St. Louis Cathedral. Looks more modern. Well, maybe this was made later in this century. So it was a place where culture could be preserved and spread. So it's kind of the birthplace of jazz, blues, rhythm and blues, all of this stuff started there. Meanwhile, or eventually, this guy Catano, I think he was from Cuba originally, had come there to New Orleans. He had a circus, and he had been traveling around the Midwest with the circus, gradually working his way downstream. And it turns out it's much easier to move an elephant downstream than it is to move an elephant upstream. So once he got to New Orleans, he just stayed there. The circus ran for a couple of years. I think it was 16 and 17, maybe 17 and 18. And then he died from yellow fever. Eventually the circus went broke. But today they were going to have, instead of the regular full circus, there had just been a hurricane the day before. Not a real bad one, but everything's kind of mussed up. So they're just going to have an animal fight. Do you remember what animals are fighting?
lions?
Not a lion, but a relative of a lion. A buffalo and tiger fight. Yeah. Okay, so Posson Jone goes to a gambling den because it's the Sabbath. He doesn't want to go visiting, but Jules says, well, it's a friend, or maybe his family, and maybe they're sick. And anyway, he gets in there, and I'm not going to tell him not to gamble, but I'm not going to gamble. Anyway, he drinks some New Orleans lemonade. What happens when you drink that lemonade in New Orleans?
Drunk.
You get massively drunk, right? And he goes to watch the buffalo and the tiger fight. But there's this huge crowd, right? And they're yelling and screaming. And how do cats react when, you know, a lot of loud people around?
They get flustered and scared.
Right, yes. I've got a 22-pound, he looks like a panther, man. And anytime somebody comes in the house, you know, like the bug man, Diddles is gone. He's just like disappears. Like, where in the world is that cat? And a couple hours later, out he comes. Well, the tiger has a similar reaction to all these screaming people, and all he wants to do is hide. But Posson Jone wants to see the fight. So he says, the buffalo shall lay down with the tiger. It shall lay down. And he picks up the tiger and carries it out there. And then, of course, the animals are quickly killed. I mean, we just outlawed dog fights and cockfights. Are cockfights still legal? I'm not sure. But this kind of thing, go ahead.
I don't think they would be if dog fights are illegal.
Dog fights are illegal, but you know, dogs are different from chickens.
Chicken fights are illegal in Louisiana as of right now.
Finally,
I do believe.
let's look it up. Illegal in all 50 states. The last state was Louisiana. It went into effect in 2008, so it's been illegal for 12 years. And also last year, they raised the lowest limit for legally getting married to 16. Before that, there was no bottom limit. You could marry off your toddler if you wanted to. Louisiana, man. So anyway, where's Posson Jone wake up after his experience in Congo Square with the, lemonade and the tiger and the buffalo and all that?
A
What is
prison
this?
cell.
Yeah, they called it the calaboose. It's a great New Orleans word for jail. And Jules comes in, and Posson Jone is terribly low. Now, we haven't mentioned we did mention Baptiste. Posson Jone has this servant named Colossus. He's huge, and that's how he gets his name. And he says, Jones is a good man, but I've got discretion. So when they're leaving, he wants to separate the slave from the master so he can get the master's money. So he sends Baptiste off to show Colossus around. But Colossus bumps into Posson Jone on the way out. And I knew that that was a clue the first time I read the story. So there's something up here. Anyway, Posson Jone is in the jail, and not only has he showed out, what is really bothering him? What is he really upset about?
He lost the money.
Oh my God, the $500. And he wants to just stay in jail. He says, I don't even deserve to be out. Because I lost the money, I should just stay here. And Jules, Jules, he started out with bad intentions, but in spite of himself, he's turned into kind of a good guy, right? He says, well, I paid your bail and they won't let you stay, so you have to leave. And this document is in French, but that's what it says, believe me. And I'm sure that's not what it said. But anyway, he gets him out of jail. Colossus and Baptiste show up. They've been having a fight. And they get on the boat to sail up Bayou Saint Jean Baptiste to Lake Pontchartrain and across Lake Pontchartrain to the North Shore and back to West Florida. And Colossus says, Jones is, this shows us one of the contrasts. That was one of my questions between Jones and Jules. Because Jules says, well, if it was somebody else's money, then why worry about it? And for Posson Jone, it's much worse to lose their money than his own. And why is that?
Because then you have a debt to pay.
That, and also your honor is at stake. So I'm a Baptist preacher or some kind of preacher. I've been trusted with this money. Imagine that. We live in an era when preachers have, two jets because one isn't enough to hold their ego. But they entrusted him with their money, and he's lost their money. If you lose your money, that's just your money, right? And if you lose somebody else's money, you've lost your honor, so he just feels awful. And it's not just somebody else's money, it's God's money. And you think the answer is obvious because Jules has won $500 miraculously at his gambling. He says, well, I'll just give you my 500 and that'll be, then you'll be even. Why does Posson Jone turn that down?
Because he got it by unholy means?
Right. Now, do Catholics have the same attitude toward gambling as these Protestants?
No.
No. And almost 200 years later, the Baptists down there had changed their minds too. I was, in a former life, I pastored the Tangipahoa Baptist Church in the village of Tangipahoa and the parish of Tangipahoa. And I was also going to the seminary during the week, and we had like a recreation, like kitchen, dining room, whatever. And the little old ladies spread out this quilt, and they were making a quilt every week, and I could see the progress when I got back, a little more of it done, a little more. Finally, I got back and the quilt was gone. I said, oh, well, what happened to the quilt? And they said, oh, we got $700 for it. And I said, how did you get $700 for a quilt? Oh, we had a lottery. And see, I was a fresh-faced Baptist from North Louisiana where gambling would send you straight to hell. But, I had to make my peace with, a church lottery pretty quickly. Okay, so that solution's off the table. So how do we get the money back? Let's go to that. I kind of like that passage. Posson Jone was on the deck, kneeling once more in prayer. Had fallen before him. He knelt behind him knelt his slave. In thundering tones, he was confessing himself a plumb fool, from whom the conceit had been jolted out. Colossus clasped his hand and groaned. The parson prayed for a contrite heart. Oh, yes, cried Colossus. The master acknowledged countless mercies. That's so, cried the slave. The master prayed that that might still be piled on glory, cried the black man, clapping his hands. Pile on. And now, pray for the money, called Colossus, but the parson prayed for Jules. Pray for the money, repeated the Negro. And, oh, give thy servant back that there lost money. Colossus rolled stealthily and tiptoed by his still shouting master. St. Ange, the captain, the crew, gazed in silent wonder at the strategist, pausing but for an instant over the master's hat to grin in acknowledgement of his beholder's speechless interest. He softly placed in it the faithfully mourned and honestly prayed for Smyrny fund. Then, saluted by the gesticulative, silent applause of St. Ange and the schooner men, he resumed his first attitude behind his roaring master. Amen, cried Colossus, meaning to bring the prayer to a close. Unworthy though I be, cried Jones. Amen, repeated the Negro. Amen, said Posson Jone. There's the money. He rose to his feet and, stooping to take his hat, beheld the well-known roll. As one stunned, he gazed for a moment upon his slave, who knelt with clasped hands and rolling eyes, but when he became aware of the laughter and cheers that greeted him from both the deck and shore, he lifted eyes and hands to heaven and cried like the veriest babe. So, that's basically the end of the story, except now St. Ange has to decide what to do with the money. And if you're a young man who likes carousing and gambling and drinking, and you come into $500, what are you going to do with it?
Do the same thing over again.
Right, spend till the money's gone. But he decides he's going to pay his debts and settle down. He began a merry little song to the effect that his sweetheart was a wine bottle, and master and man, leaving care behind, returned to the picturesque Rue Royale. The ways of Providence are indeed strange, and all Posson Jone's afterlife, amid the many painful reminiscences of his visit to the city of the plain, the sweet knowledge was withheld from him that by the light of the Christian virtue that shone from him, even in his great fall, Jules St. Ange arose and went to his father, an honest man. Oh, here are all our notes. All right, so let's talk about the story and how it relates to young Goodman Brown. How are these stories similar?
They both are about religion.
Right, and two religious men. And what happens to these religious men during this story? These two stories.
They, I mean, I guess like stray from the path, like a good Christian path. I don't know.
Yes, exactly. So they both failed in a moment of temptation. And they both come back again with a painful lesson. So a lot of this stuff is different. Well, the main difference is this. For young Goodman Brown, the place of Christianity and, walking the straight and narrow is the town, right? And where do you go to have fun? Where did he go
In the
during the
woods.
story? The woods, yeah. For Posson Jones, where does he live all the time?
Outside of the town.
Yeah, out in the country, out in the woods. He's got, a crop. He's probably a cotton farmer or something, but he also has vegetables. And then on Sunday he preaches. And where is it that you go to be tempted and to fall into sin? Where does the story take place?
In the town of New Orleans.
Right. So do good Protestants from parts, rural areas who walk the straight and narrow and go to church every Sunday, do they still go to New Orleans to find temptation?
No.
All right. Anybody have another answer to that?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. That's where we go to sin, right? Don't you guys go to New Orleans to sin?
Of course, don't you?
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. So there we go. As I get older, my sin is mostly limited to gluttony because I can still do the food. Then a little drink. Anyway. So young Goodman Brown versus Posson Jone, they both leave home. They're both tempted. They both fail. One leaves the town to go to the country. The other leaves the country to go to the town, but that's rooted in their specific context. Is it easier to find sin in New Orleans than it is to find it in Salem, Massachusetts? Especially at that time.
Probably.
Yeah. Sin is more of a tradition and it's openly practiced in New Orleans. But the biggest difference is not in setting, but it's in the result of their their failure. How does it end for Goodman Brown? What's he like at the end of the story? Does he come back into town whistling with a Bible under his arm?
No.
All right. What's he like at the end?
He's kind of jaded, I guess.
Jaded, suspicious, mistrustful, desperate. His dying hour was gloom. So even though he escapes from the temptation, he is scarred for life in a way that, if we remember, we called it disfides, diffidence, a dislocated faith that's out of kilter with the world around him. What about Posson Jones? How is he at the end of the story? We just read it. Come on, guys.
He was praying.
He was still praying, and his prayer was answered, right? His faith was upheld where young Goodman Brown's faith failed him. His own faith prevails. Partly because not so much, this isn't about God, this is about the people around him. Everybody young Goodman Brown relied on failed. The people Posson Jone was relying on actually came through, right? Especially Colossus and Jules. Also, there's some of it is their own personal attitude. Whose sin was Goodman Brown worried about?
Everyone else's.
Everybody else's. I am just totally worried about everybody else's sin. I need to, inspect everybody's life. Whose sin was Posson Jone worried about?
His own.
His own. Can you repent for somebody else's sin?
Absolutely not.
No. There's no path forward for Goodman Brown because he's all externally focused on everybody else and not himself. Where Posson Jone, does he blame Jules? Does he blame Colossus? Does he blame the gamblers? Does he blame the tiger?
No.
No, which is what we do, right? Oh, it was that damn tiger. If it hadn't been for that damn tiger, I'd still have the money. And Jules, he took me to a gambling joint. And Colossus, where was he when I needed him? And so there's that temptation to focus on yourself. So these are the differences between them. Partly their reaction to being tempted and to having failed, but also partly the fact that as far as young Goodman Brown knows, he's been abandoned by everybody. He's the last Christian in town, whereas Jones knows that both Colossus and Jules and everybody else is on his side. Everybody, is happy that he gets the money back. Jules is actually crying. And, who is the tempter in young Goodman Brown?
Himself.
Oh, there's a guy he meets. Who is that?
Would you say the dark figure or the devil?
Yes, the sable figure, which we know is the devil. He's the tempter. Is he going to be tempted to good? Are you going to reclaim the devil? When he sees us, how awesome Goodman Brown is he going to reform his ways?
No.
No, sir.
No, not at all. What about Posson Jone? Who's the tempter in that one?
Himself?
No, there's some guy, local guy, saying I can show you around. Misty Posson Jone. We'll go see my friend. I'm not going to mention that we're gambling.
Jules.
Jules. I mean, at the very beginning, he's out of money. Jones has money, so he's going after Jones's money. He's, you know, it's a very corrupt thing to do. But as he's around Posson Jone, through maybe it's all in one day, maybe it's a couple of days. But who tempts who? Yeah, they're both tempting each other, right? Jules is tempting Posson Jone with the Kool-Aid and the animal fight and the gambling. And Jones is, I'm not sure tempting is the right word, but he's just being himself, showing his basic decency and good-heartedness. And at the end, it's actually Jones who wins Jules over and not the other way around. So having a tempter who's an actual human being who's still forming his character, that's a big, you know, that's a big difference between the two stories. All right, so how to write about this story? You can compare Posson Jone to Young Goodman Brown, their journey into, now, one thing I will warn you again, we've said this before, but don't just retell this story, you've got to analyze it. So be sure that you're comparing the two throughout, like how are they both away from home? You know, how are they both tempted? How do they both come through temptation? What's the consequence? See how that could become retelling the story. So you want to watch out for that. Make sure it's analysis and not retelling. If you're confused, do something else. You could also compare the characters in this story. Is there the way to do a box? Maybe not here. Let's see, can I blow this up? Oh, that's a little better. Okay, so our four main characters are Posson Jone, Jules St. Ange, and their two servants, Colossus and Baptiste. This is back during a period where slavery was still legal. In fact, you know, it's going to be middle of the century before that changes. And you can compare and contrast them. And Cable was not only a fiction writer, he didn't write a lot of poetry. He may have written a few poems in some of his, like, you know, longer stories, like a poem somebody would say, but he was also a political thinker. And while he had been on the side of the South during the Civil War, after the Civil War, he wrote books and pamphlets and stuff in favor of civil rights for the freed slaves. The Silent South is the most famous of these, where he talks about the need for, you know, bringing the freed former slaves into the general society, giving them civil rights, education, vote, all the basic stuff that we know that everybody deserves. And so in the story, he's kind of undermining our expectations about, especially Colossus and Baptiste. Baptiste is well, Jules St. Ange and Baptiste, they're both from the city. Oh, goodness. That is tiny. Baptiste is mixed race. I think they call him a mulatto. There was a whole series of racial categories. How do I get to the story? Oh. I don't know. What do they call him? His yellow body servant, that goes to him being mixed race. I don't know. Anyway, in the expectation of the time, especially among white people, right? The white people are superior to everybody else in the world, and black people are inferior, but the closer you are to white, the more superior you are. So if you had lighter skin tone, you were seen as being probably smarter. So there's this ancient comedy, Pseudolus by Plautus, that basically supplies the plot for this story. So Pseudolus, and this means false snare. It's a Greek word, even though it's a Latin play. Pseudolus is the slave. I can't remember the young man's name, but there's a young man. He's got a rich father. The rich father won't give him money. And he happens to live next door to a brothel, and there's a new girl there that he wants to be with, but he doesn't have the money to be with her. And so it's his servant's task, Pseudolus, he puts him to tricking everybody in the story so that the master and the girl at the brothel can get together. And by, he just lies his way through the whole thing, tricks everybody. And that's the model for Baptiste. So we're expecting Baptiste to be able to run circles around Colossus, both just based on skin color. Colossus is big. He's rural. He's dark. Like his skin is darker. And so we're expecting he's just going to be a big dumb guy, right? But of the four of these people, who is by far the smartest?
Colossus.
Colossus. So he overturns this racist expectation that everybody will have going into the story who read it at the time. Oh, Colossus, this big dumb guy. But he tells us right off the bat, I've got discretion, right? I'm smarter than you think I am. Everybody underestimates me. So when was the time that he was able to get that money from Posson Jone to save it for when they were leaving? Remember when he was leaving with Baptiste, he bumped into Posson Jone, and everybody's saying, oh, big, country, dark, stupid. He's clumsy. Oh, yes, of course. But no, he wasn't clumsy. He was taking that money so that Jules wouldn't be able to get his hands on it. He was saving Posson Jone from himself. So while Posson Jone gets all the attention in the story with his antics, it's Colossus who comes through in a big way. And so you could analyze the story from the perspective of those four characters and how they interact and how Colossus, because everybody underestimates him because they're all racist, how he's able to save the day without them even knowing he was trying to save the day. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. All right. So when you write your Where's my, nope. Ah, here we go. You can write about young Goodman Brown. You can write about Bunyan, Goodman Littlefaith. You can write about Posson Jone. You can write about young Goodman Brown versus Posson Jone, young Goodman Brown and Goodman Littlefaith. There are any number of ways you can kind of, you can either write about one of these alone or you can compare a couple of them. And so you'll want a good outline that makes sense. You want topic sentences or thesis statement. You want topic sentences for each paragraph. You want to use quotations from the stories to support your argument. All right, any questions about that? How about questions about the assignment due this week? Let's look at that one more time so you're not confused. So it's the lecture from the first day. If you're just totally at sea, you've got the lecture. I think, oh, now I'm putting up a YouTube video of me showing a YouTube video. That's awesome. So there are the directions. We walk you through it. It's very specific, a type of assignment. And I give you an example of one somewhere. Here we go, the sample review. Edgar Allan Poe. Don't just trust spell check because it won't say alien is misspelled because it's not, but actually that, I kind of like that. It kind of makes it better if there were aliens in Edgar Allan Poe. All right, so no questions?
I have a few questions.
Ah, excellent.
Did you say that you wanted the URL at the end of our paper?
Just with your bibliography. The easiest way to make your bibliography is an EasyBib.
Okay.
And if you just do the MLA8 and paste in the URL, it'll show up in the bibliography where it's supposed to be.
Okay, and then also on the sample paper, there's no like end quote citations. Did you want us to include those or no?
Probably, yeah, that would make it better. So parenthetical citations, like page, what page it's on, that makes it easier to find. And it's good practice for down the road.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
When did you say the review was due?
Let's turn it in this weekend. If you can get them in Friday, I can try to grade them. Well, I'm moving this weekend, so God only knows. I'll try to get a little time to grade some of them anyway. It may be Monday before I get to them.
Where are you moving to?
Well, I'm helping my ex-wife move from one part of Metairie to another, but we've got to go up to our shed in Monroe because we got a lot of furniture up there. So. And I'm going to drop in and remind Tech that I'm a faculty member while I'm there, so they don't forget that I teach.
So I had submitted the paper like last night, and I didn't put the URL, but I do have like my bibliography and stuff like that on that. Or,
That'll
like,
be fine.
Okay.
All right. Well, do y'all want to get started on our group projects? We haven't had a moment to spend on that. Let me share. Presentations. Okay, can y'all see that?
Yes.
hear it? Can y'all hear it?
Yes, sir.
Hi there. Come up on the porch. We're just sitting here watching it rain and talking about Louisiana. Okay, I'm Bruce. This is the beginning of Louisiana Anthology podcast. We'll talk about what we want to talk about concerning Louisiana. That's part of a broader project, Louisiana. So before why an anthology, let's say what an anthology is. An anthology is a collection of texts around a specific theme. So for this class, we have an anthology of just general literature that you can write about. For American literature, you have an anthology, a book, which collects all the texts that they think are important for you to read in an American literature class. Same thing with Brit-Lit. And so why we thought about this was I couldn't find one. I wanted a Louisiana anthology and I couldn't find one. And my co-editor, Stephen Payne, said, well, why don't we do our own? So before we did that, we went and looked to see if there were any out there. There was the Louisiana book, but it was published in 1894, which is over 125 years ago. There was also an online anthology, the Bibliothèque Tintamarre, over in Centenary, but as you can tell, it's all French and French Creole. So this is our home page. We've got our works divided into authors, titles, languages. We don't have eras and genres yet. We do have a podcast, the rest of this stuff. So we're up to over 200 authors. Some of them have just one thing they've written, others have several, so in 8 million words. It's a pretty good size website now. Also, from the moment that we started this, it was 2012, the era of the iPhone was upon us, and we wanted it to be smartphone friendly. So this is how the screen looks in a smartphone. If you click on authors, it will take you to this page. You can browse all, and that's where all 200 authors are listed alphabetically. Or you could click on, say, C, and you get this page. And, well, I know who Sam Clemens was. Let's click on that. It'll take you to this page. Life on the Mississippi is super long, so let's take a look at the letter to Pamela A. Moffett.
It's the beginning of Lent, and all good Catholics eat and drink freely of what they please, and, in fact, do what they please, in order that they may be the better able to keep sober and quiet during the coming fast. It has been said that a Scotchman has not seen the world until he has seen Edinburgh, and I think that I may say that an American has not seen the United States until he has seen Mardi Gras in New Orleans. Sam Clemens, March 9th, 1859.
All right, so young Sam Clemens, 22, 24 years old, it's 1859. He's a cub pilot on a riverboat. And one Tuesday, he steps off the riverboat into New Orleans Mardi Gras. And a couple of days later, he writes this letter to his sister about all of the things he's seen and done in the city of New Orleans during Mardi Gras. So not only is he at the, this is before the beginning of his career. He doesn't even invent Mark Twain for another 6 or 7 years. And it's the beginning of Mardi Gras as we understand it today. This is the third time they've had the Mystic Crew of Comus parade down St. Charles Street. And he's there for that. And it's a great work. Does this, by the way, look like modern Mardi Gras, more or less?
No, it's crazier now.
It's pretty crazy then, though. It's recognizable, right?
Most definitely.
So you still got the flambeaus, people carrying oil lamps down the street. We've got trucks instead of oxen pulling stuff. But yeah, there's still a lot of drinking. There's dressing up. There's carousing, all the fun stuff. And so it's this great work where we get a view of early Mardi Gras from early Sam Clemens. And the only two places it's available on the web are our site and the Mark Twain Project out in California. Let's check those two out and see how they hold up on a smartphone. All right, so how does this look on a smartphone?
Excellent.
It looks great, right? Thank you. Even if I have to pat myself on the back. All right, let's check out the Mark Twain Project. Sad cornet, why? What's wrong with this picture?
Very overwhelming.
Well, and can you read it?
No, not at all.
No. So this website was designed probably in the 90s. It looks like one of those, you know, they got the first grant. Let's put something, you know, all the stuff up by Mark Twain. It's very scholarly. It's like you've got the text on the left and all the notes on the right. But it does not translate to a smartphone. So if you're going to write a research paper about this letter, I suggest going to the Mark Twain Project. If you want to read it for fun on your iPhone, you definitely want to go to our website. So that was our goal, was to make this as fun as possible and to put it out as widely as possible. We start with earliest European exploration by de Vaca. We have Native American stories, founding of New Orleans, Pierre Antoine. He brought tried to bring the Inquisition to New Orleans. It didn't work out too well. This is Battle of New Orleans, Civil War Diary, grandest scenes. This is another story by George Washington Cable, written about early, right before statehood, but he wrote it late in the century. Old French Market, at the Acadian Ball. Chopin, we've got a lot of Chopin, and she's probably our most important author of fiction right now. Oh, cookbooks. Lots of cookbooks. This one's in both French and English, and they don't translate each other. It's just some of it's in French and some of it's in English. You need to know both because it's Louisiana. And we even have modern stuff. This is by one of our recent poet laureates. Here's our podcast. Wiley Hilburn was the head of our journalism department for many years. He's passed away now, so just a few months after this interview, he passed away suddenly. So we're happy we got to talk to him. Here's our podcast on iTunes. What if they changed it now to Apple Podcasts? It's the same thing. It's on Stitcher. We have a cookbook with, I think, 700 recipes, most of them from these old cookbooks. Facebook page. We used to have Google Plus until they killed it. That month we had 2,100 visits to our website. This last month we've had today we had 6,666. So we've reached our perfect demonic number. So the website is growing, and even at this time there were people around the world coming to our site. Louisiana is usually the #1, but a couple of months ago it was Texas, so we have to get busy. If you click on Louisiana, you can see where in the state. And Ruston only had 41 out of the 2,000 visits, so that's 41 are the number of students I made go to the website. Everybody else came there because somebody else made them. All right, so that's it for the introduction to Louisiana mythology itself. Let's talk about your project. So basically, we're trying to get stuff from around the internet that's in public domain. And so this is what it looks like when we find it. That one's wretched. I'm sure we can find a nicer one. So this is the basically the Code Noir from the Spanish period. And it hasn't been worked on at all. So it's not in our, it's not set up yet. Once a group has worked on it, it moves up here. You can see the first thing the group does is put the website into our format and starts proofreading, and whatever other adjustments need to be made. Eventually, when it's all done, we put it up on our website. So most of the 8 million words that are on the website were edited in part by students like yourself. So, you know, how many things do you do in school that don't wind up in some teacher's garbage can? It mostly goes, you know, it's mostly, you know, effort to teach you, but not do anything beyond that. This actually, hopefully, will be around forever, and your contribution will be part of that. Okay, so does that make sense? All right, so here are our groups. Group 1, Bruno and Caraway. 2, Daniel Durant Edwards. 3, 4, 5. We've got 9 groups. Why don't I do breakout rooms now? You can talk about what you want your choice to be. Put that in the Moodle, and then I will, once you've made your choice, that's all you need to do for today. So put your email address in the Moodle group that I set up for you, and your top 3 choices. And then I'll get that set up and we'll work on it more next time. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
All right.
Yeah.
How many groups do we have? 9?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'll put as many people as we have into these. I'll have to do that myself. Rooms. Okay. Ah, that's working. One. No. No way. Ah, we've got both of you. Good. Group 2, Daniel. Duran. I think you're, let me see, where's my, was here. Not here anymore. And Edwards. Fine. Oh, here we go. Here's Edward. Leaving yet, or do I have to do something?
I think you have to do something.
Okay. I'll try to hurry. Gregory, Hamilton. Are any of those 3 here? Who's Hamilton?
Hey, I'm here.
Hey, what's your name?
Austin. It's either going to be under James or Austin.
Oh, Hamilton?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's go with last names. Okay, I got you, Hamilton. Gregory or Farthing?
I don't think either one of them are here.
All right. Well, you'll have to make your choice by yourself. That's what they get for not showing up. Heineman?
Yes.
Good. Hickman?
I don't think they're here, but my other group mate is.
I'm here.
Hyde? Is it Hyde or Hickman?
Hickman is here.
Hickman's here. Okay. So maybe Hyde's not here.
Yeah, Hyde is not here.
I seem to remember that. Okay. Breakout room 5. Jones. Good. Massey. McClinton.
Yes, sir. I'm here.
All right. Okay. Here we go. I see you. This would really go faster if they out. I know I've said that. Moore. I think Moore was out, right? Murphy. Here's Murphy. And O'Brien. All right. Group 7. Pepper. I remember Pepper.
I'm here.
Rivet. And Salter. Excellent. 8. It's Shanklin. Smith. Strickland. Let's see, Strickland. And group 9. Taylor, Travis, and Williams. Okay, open all rooms. Okay, so the room should be open for you to join.
Hey, Mr. McGee. Okay, so just making sure. What are we supposed? Okay, so if I were in the group that I'm supposed to be in, like if they were here,
right?
What are we all supposed to be choosing on? I know our group projects, but like, what are we supposed to be choosing out of?
Let me give you. I'm going to put a link in. I forgot to do that. Thanks. There are these choices, and some of them are taken. Don't use one of those. Okay. Did that go through? Did you get your message?
Let me see. Close it out and then open it back up. I did not on the actual like Zoom chat.
Let me try it again. Oh crap! I put the wrong thing up. Sorry. Let me get the. It's going to call us in a little bit. Okay.
Dr. McGee, can you go over the instructions again? Because I'm kind of confused on it. And then in my group, I don't know.
Did you find your choices?
No, sir.
Trying to
I don't
do
know
that
where to
now.
find those.
Yeah, I know. I forgot to mention it. I'm trying to send it to everybody now. Project. Available items. See, I do a better job with this. Maybe I'm sleepy or something. Okay, so how do I share with you guys? Breakout room 9. I need to broadcast a message to all. Okay, I'm going to try that. Okay, did that come through at all?
I can see it on the top, but I can't click on the link.
How about if I put it in chat? Can you click on links in chat?
I think so.
Let me try that. All right, try that and see if you can click on it.
Yes, sir.
It worked?
Yes, sir.
All right, so just list your top 3 choices.
Okay. And what are we choosing them for?
For your group project. That's what your group is going to be working on this quarter.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you what to do later. Right now, just all you're doing mostly, most groups are just proofreading. So you open it up in an editor, and then you proofread it and save it, and then through Dropbox it goes to everybody else.
Okay. Nobody else was in my group
Well, then
when
you
you
get
did
to
the
pick
breakout rooms.
Then you get to pick all by yourself.
Okay. And then just put them on Moodle.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're
Thank you.
representing your group. Okay. And 9 needed help. Is it 9? Wanted help.
Phew, yes, sir. Lifesaver.
Oh man.
What's up?
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I think we got it figured out. We were confused on what we were choosing from, like the list,
I
but
know,
then
I
we
didn't do
got
it.
your link and we kind of figured it out, and we're looking through that link right now.
Okay, good.
So we just
Well,
pick like our top 3 and then
Yes.
put it on the forum.
Any of you know French?
A little bit.
If you can pick a French one, that would be great. But if
Nah,
not,
I don't know it that well.
well, you're not writing French. You just need to be able to proofread and say, that doesn't look like a French word. So it's less Frenchy than you might think. But you don't have to. We've got plenty of English, a few Spanish. Anybody know Spanish?
Mm-mm.
Not enough.
In high school, but
All right, we all can stick with the English then. All right, give me a holler if you need anything else.
okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Heck, y'all got any more questions or any questions?
So just once we pick out like the 3 topics that we've got to choose from, you said to upload them to Moodle, right?
Yeah, there's a Moodle forum for groups. And put in your email address that you want to use for Dropbox and your top 3 choices, and you're done for the day.
Okay.
I might visit
Just
another.
the Louisiana Anthology Group Project open forum thing.
Yes,
Okay.
and you're in one of the groups. Just don't
I
put it in
think
a
it's-
random group. Put it in your group.
I think it's in group 3.
Batting order. Group 3 is Farthing, Gregory, and Hamilton. Okay, I'm going to stop recording now. I think we've seen everything we need to today.
Hey, so real quick,
Sure.
just so I can make sure I get it to my other two group people. So from these three topics that we're picking, we're kind of doing like we're doing with the article analysis. Is that kind of how this is?
Well, except you aren't writing about it, you're just editing it. So you'll mostly be probably proofreading. About 90% of the groups, that's all they do is when you scan the document, sometimes, you know, it reads it right and sometimes it doesn't. So it needs an actual person to come behind it and proofread it.
Okay, so we're just gonna go behind and just kind of like correct it.
Yeah, and then once it's done, I put it up on my website.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay.
I can't get to 8 million words doing it all by myself, so I use volunteers.
All righty. Well, if we don't have any more questions, do we need to go ahead and submit that before we get off the Zoom?
Yeah,
Or
yeah. Try to put those into Moodle so I can be getting them set up before next week.
Okay.
But then once you're done with that, you can leave for the day.
And you said we're good to leave after we pick our three topics?
Yes, you may leave for the week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. See y'all next week.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Magee,
Yes.
do you want us to just type the names of our choices or like put the links?
Either one is fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Dr. McGee, did you get ours?
I'm not sure. What group are you in?
Group 3, Hamilton.
I'll go check. Moodle, log in. 10, no, what is this? 102? Yes. And project. So what group are you in?
Hamilton, Gregory, and Farthing.
I mean,
think.
what number? Is that 1?
Oh, 3. No, it's
3.
group.
Yeah, somebody put some stuff in 3. I don't want to open it until I'm ready to work on it because then the new goes away and I don't know. Like, that's how I go by, I look in the new stuff and I assume the old stuff I've already looked at, so I don't look at it again. But it looks like it.
Alrighty.
Yeah, it says your last reply was 40 seconds ago.
Okay. Then yeah, that's it. Alrighty.
All right. See you next week.
Yes, sir. Well,
Dr. McGee.
All right. Hello.
Hello.
Hey. Hi.
So that's all we had to do, right? Was just to make our decision on the three things.
In a little bit, I got to run to Jefferson for a minute, but then I'll come back and get the car. I should be there before 5. Thanks so much. All right, bye. Would you want to ride with me when I get back from Vietnam? I can do the, I can do what's called. Yeah, might not be great to have you driving. All right. Okay, Smith, you there? Oh, crap. Yeah. Oh, hold on. Okay, Smith, you there? How about you, Shanklin? You there?
I'm here.
Okay. Did you need anything? If you're not, you're the last one, so we can.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was waiting on my group, and I picked out 3 things, and I was actually looking to see where to send them to.
You put them in your Moodle discussion. Let me show you. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
So see, there's a Louisiana Anthology group project, and then you're divided up into groups, and your name's in your group. Let me see which group you're in.
I think it's 8.
I've got a master list. Choices, batting order. Yes, Shanklin, group 8. So just put it in that one.
Okay. And I don't know. I mean, nobody came to the.
Hey, you snooze, you lose, man. You get your choice. You don't have to.
It might not be happy with them, but.
Well, tell them to come to class.
Uh-huh.
All right. Talk to you later.
Have a good one.
You too.